chapter 4 also talks about the police organizational culture. Okay, and what it means by organizational culture is, any group that is in a similar position or whatnot actually has kind of their own little subculture. So police are unique in that sense, and so police have their own kind of little subculture that's separate from everybody else. Just like a lot of times, high school students, for example, can have their own little subculture, or college students can have their own subculture, or members of a particular church might have their own subculture, or members of a particular religion, or, even like the football team. Everybody that's on the football team, they have their own little subculture. They are football players, they're jocks or whatnot. They have their own subculture. Cheerleaders have their own kind of subculture, right? And so the same thing with cops. Cops have their own subculture. And not to say that we're all the same, because we're definitely not. And I think that's important to remember, is that not everybody's the same, right? But at the same time, there is a lot of similarities and things like that. Okay, so the thin blue line, and most of you may or may not have heard of that. That's a metaphor that places police officers as the element that separates lawful society and chaos. And then you kind of see those blue flags or blue lives matter or things like that. That's in a lot of ways, that's creating more division, which isn't a good thing, right? It's not. There's not them and us thing. That's not what we want. Community policing, we want to bring unity and togetherness. But within that subculture of police have a different role and a different responsibility. And the reality is, it's in some ways it's a good thing that you guys don't have interaction with police, right? And it's good because the police have a different role. And I think of some of the things I encounter as an officer. That's not stuff that I want to share with my wife or my kids or my friends, because there's some awful things in our world, in our community, that I don't want everybody to know about. I don't want you guys to know about all of the sex offenders and rapists that I have to deal with. I don't want you guys to know about the murderers that we have in jail right now and the crimes they committed and all the horrific things they've done. I don't want you guys to know about all the people we have in jail and all the victims that they've victimized, and how they've negatively affected so many people's lives, and how they've, the domestic violence incidents where people are abusing their wives, abusing their kids, abusing their husbands, abusing elderly people. There's some really awful things that happen in this world. And so in some ways, it's a good thing that there's a separation, because the police are able to deal with that and handle those situations, and in a sense shield or protect the rest of the community from being exposed to all those horrific things. So there can be an argument that's a good thing, that the police are there to separate a peaceful community from the crime and the wickedness and evil that is in society. But at the same time, there's also the argument that no, people need to know about everything that's going on, and we need to all handle those problems together and be involved. So and that's a good point. It would let us know the good things that police officers have done, and that's those are the stories that don't get reported, right? And so sometimes you're like, forget it, the police just cause problems. But at the end of the day, though, when like, hey, there's this guy that's raped multiple women, and he's finally been arrested, and he's not going to see outside of a jail cell for a really long time, that makes you feel good, because you don't want him victimizing more people. He's already potentially ruined multiple women's lives for a long time. And we don't want that to happen again. And so that's fulfilling. And those are the good things. And those are the stories you want to hear about, that's not going to happen anymore. Okay. So, but anyway, there is a subculture. We're going to talk about some of those aspects of that culture. We work, like I even mentioned in the beginning of the class, we work different schedules. I work all night long. I'm going to go to work after this class, and I'm going to be working all night, and I'll get off at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. So while everybody, you guys are all sleeping, I'm going to be working, because that's my responsibility, right? I have that responsibility to work nights and weekends. And even this other part, to deal with highly confidential material that can't be shared. So I'm a fairly low-level cop, so I don't deal with a lot of high-level confidential things, but a lot of officers do. Those that are working with underground stuff or undercover things where they're working with trying to bust drug cartels or bust terrorist organizations. A lot of the FBI work that some of you guys are interested in, that's super confidential. You can't even talk to your family and friends about that stuff. You're not going to go, to a restaurant and be talking about what you did at work that day. You have to keep all that very private, all that secret, because these are very highly confidential and dangerous things that you're involved in. And so the only people you can talk about are other cops. And so you end up having this other, Victoria, you work as Anaheim PD? What do you do?
They have a cafe in there that I work in.
How cool is that? So you see cops all the time then?
Yeah, basically.
Is the food any good?
Yeah, of course.
Are the cops nice to you?
Of course, they have to.
They have to. Hopefully they want to too. But oh, cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna remember because I'm gonna ask you more questions later because I wish we could just talk and have a ton of time, but we're not gonna have time. But anyway, yeah, so Victoria actually gets to see that firsthand, this subculture of the police, because she sees the police all the time, and they do. They have like kind of their own language, they have their own community, and they do things. So one of the things that unite all officers is they're willing and ready to risk their lives for each other. And that's one thing you have to be willing to do when you go into work. You have a gun on you, and you have to be willing. Okay, if someone's life is in danger, I have to be willing to use my weapon to take someone else's life in order to protect my life, my partner's life, or somebody's life in the community. And so that's a heavy responsibility, but that's something that brings all of the police community together, right? And then we have to face public hostility. I don't have a popular job right now. Most people in the community don't like cops, and because of what some cops have done in different parts of the country, they think we're all the same, and so they hate me because I'm a cop, and that's not cool. That doesn't make me feel good. But at the same time, I'm not going to take that personally or have my feelings hurt. That's the nature of the business. There's always going to be that aspect of law enforcement where people don't always agree with you and people don't always like. And people are going to protest. This is one of the fascinating things about the protests. You have law enforcement out there during these protests, and the law enforcement is there to allow people to protest, and they're protesting against us. So, I could be standing out there, and I'm there to also protect lives and property, and so I'm not going to let them burn down a police station, but anything short of them destroying the police station, I'm going to allow them to protest and voice their opinion. Even if their opinion is, I hate you, you suck, F you, F your children, F your wife. And that's what a lot of people say to police officers in those situations. But they absolutely have the right to say that, and we're going to protect their freedom of expression and their right to protest and their right to assemble. So that's an interesting thing, right? Police, we're protecting people's rights to protest against us and have that opinion. But we do face public hostility, abuse, bias all the time. I really got to get moving here. Styles of policing was, where did I go? Styles of the policing is the next thing they talked about. There are different styles. So you'll read about that in chapter 4. There's the enforcer, who's just, every law is just, they're going to be super hardcore and they're going to enforce every law. So if grandma's jaywalking across the street, he's giving grandma a ticket because he is the enforcer. There is no law that can slide, and he's going to arrest the kid for not wearing a bicycle helmet, all that stuff, right? He's a hardcore enforcer. He's a go-getter. He's doing it, right? You have the crime fighter zealot, which is, again, still on that kind of, on that path of like, hey, I'm enforcing the law. But he's a little bit more, he's a little more discretion. He doesn't care about grandma crossing the street. Grandma's not hurting anybody. He doesn't care about the person, maybe going 70 miles an hour when the speed limit is 65. Doesn't care about that. But he cares about crime. He's going after the rapists, the drug dealers, the murderers. He's fighting legitimate crime. Very hazard. So that's kind of more his thing. You have the social service agent. Okay, the social service agent. That's the person that's really their goal is, yeah, they want to fight crime and put bad guys away, but they want to help people. So they're thinking, hey, there's homeless people, there's people strung out on drugs. those people need help. And so as a law enforcement officer, I am in a position where I can help people and I can do things to help. And so they take more of that social service thing where they're like, okay, I'm going to help these people that are addicted to drugs. I'm going to help them find rehab programs, or I'm going to help them get on the right track, or point them in a direction of where they can get some help, or these homeless people, I could help them find shelter, or different things like that. Or like, I can help students and young people not get sucked into gangs or gang culture, things like that. So that's kind of more the social service agent. And then the watchdog, that's the kind of person that's like, hey, I don't want to make waves. I'm just going to kind of stand back. If something bad happens, I'll get involved, but anything short of that, I'm not really going out of my way to help people. I'm not going out of my way to go find bad people. I'm just cool to watch things and kind of keep things cool. So you have those different styles of policing. How cool is that, Jalen? How'd you do that? But anyway, you have those different styles of policing and whatnot. And most cops kind of, there's a blurred line. It's not like you're only one thing or the other. You're different things in different positions, but those are different. And then, so your book talks a little bit more about those. Procedural justice. Don't really have time to get into it, but basically that's the idea of that the people in the community that the police are interacting with, they're okay getting a ticket, right? If they feel like their voice was heard, they're respected, the police was neutral, like, they're not just targeting them because of their race or ethnicity or gender or anything like that. They give understanding and they're helpful, right? So that's a big deal. And so some people don't like police because they don't feel like they're neutral. Hey, they're targeting me, they're discriminating against me, and so that's why I don't like the police. But if the police are impartial, be like, hey, I'm not discriminating against you, I give a ticket to everybody. Doesn't matter who they are. I'll give a ticket to, I'll give a ticket to a celebrity. I'll give a ticket to the first lady. I'll give a ticket to the mayor. Doesn't matter. Anybody who breaks this law or whatever, I'm gonna arrest, or I'm gonna cite or whatnot. So there's that neutrality, and you do it respectfully. People want to be respected. If as a cop comes to you and is disrespectful and rude and makes you feel like trash or dirt, then you're not going to respond in a respectful way. You're going to be like, you're going to be defensive, and you're going to respond rudely and disrespectfully to somebody who's disrespectful to you. So it's important for police officers to show respect to everybody they're dealing with, even criminals. And that gets difficult. And that's where it takes a certain level of training and responsibility is, hey, even this person who I show up to their house because they beat their wife, I can't just go in there and rip his head off and treat him like crap and punish him myself because he deserves it. I still actually have to, that guy's a dirtbag, but I still have to show a certain level of respect to him, even though he's a criminal and he deserves to be punished. That's not my role. I still need to show respect and impartiality as I arrest him and take him to jail. Okay. Stereotypes about police, and you guys have seen these. Police, some people think police are suspicious, they're cynical, they're indifferent, they're authoritarian, bigoted, brutal, and a lot of those things are true, and a lot of those things are not true. And they're true sometimes, they're not true all the times, but overall there's these stereotypes. And law enforcement, we need to help overcome these. We don't want to have these negative stereotypes about us. We want to try to fix those things. I can't believe I did not get farther in this lecture. This is very disappointing. Police image can be seen. So the police image that talks about, okay, how are police seen in the community? And the whole police image right now is pretty negative, right? The image of police within our community currently is fairly negative, right? And most of that is based on the media's portrayal. And I'm not saying the media is doing anything wrong. It's also based on what the police are doing and what they're involved in, and what level of is happening. The reality is a lot of people have been shot this week. A lot of people have been arrested this week, but most of those things are not, I shouldn't say a lot of people have gotten shot, because not a lot of people get shot on a regular basis. A few other people have gotten shot, I'm sure, this week. And lots of people have gotten arrested, and the police have done a lot of things, but not all of those things get reported in the media and reported in the press. And so the media's portrayal kind of dictates what the police image is, right? And And that's the way it is, and that's normal. But also that police image is based on everyday contact with the community. So Victoria might have a different image of police because she interacts with them every day and she sees them smiling and laughing and being nice and ordering food. Whereas other people who only see the police pulling people over on the street or only see the police in the news might have a different perspective of that police image. Here's the question that I wanted to discuss in small groups, but we don't have time for that. So just real quick as we end class today, how can police change and improve their image right now?